Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, streaming January 25th, only on Netflix.
Listen to the 48 Hours podcast for shocking murder cases and compelling real-life dramas from one of television's most watched true crime shows. Go behind the scenes of each episode with award-winning CBS News correspondents and producers in Postmortem, a weekly deep dive. Listen to 48 Hours wherever you get your podcasts.
This is Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Central Texas Life. Ann Harder here with you, and it is a joy to welcome Dinah Mills here to the podcast. We're going to talk about the Salvation Army. Dinah, you and I knew each other in another life when you were working with the City of McGregor.
Yes, absolutely.
You did that a while, took a little time off,
Yep.
and about a year or so ago went to work for the Salvation Army in their marketing and special events area.
Yes.
And they do a lot of
There's
a lot of stuff.
A lot of things that they do. It's remarkable, really, what the Salvation Army gets done in Waco. And a lot of people don't know exactly who we are or what we are. A lot of times they just think we're a thrift store. And so that's why I'm here, because we want to talk about all the things that the Salvation Army does do. But I just want to talk about getting hired with the Salvation Army. So I actually followed their development director, Mary Wentworth. Who you know.
A friend of mine, yeah.
And so I don't know why I'm following her on LinkedIn, but I just am. And she posts this position, and I'm like, blank, okay, I'm in.
That looks
Put in
like
my
me.
resume. Yes, exactly. And got the job, and my daughter came home, and I told her, and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Mom, you're working for the Lord." So she was so excited, because we used to go around and bring food to homeless people. She'd be like, "Mom, we need to get some food for that guy," and we would drive around and get food and then drop it off to people. So really, it felt like a meant to be type situation for me.
Well, I did take a little time to do some research on the Salvation Army. Of course, it was founded in 1865 in London, England, which, when you think about it, that was right, during the time of the Civil War in the United States.
Yes.
And yet William Booth was a Methodist minister, really called to evangelism, but had a heart for the downtrodden and the lower classes and the poor people in the East End of London. And that's kind of where he got this started. And it wasn't initially called the Salvation Army.
It wasn't. It took a little while for them to kind of come to that. The shield part was pretty immediate. They wanted the shield of the Lord to protect them. But I think after they probably went through a year or so, maybe 3 years, he decided that it really needed to be structured like an army with so many people.
Paramilitary, I guess we'd call it today.
Yes. So that's where the Salvation Army came from, because he thought, okay, we need to set it up so that it is like the military, that we can have these different levels of responsibility, things to do.
I didn't turn our timer on, so that's okay, but now it's going. The interesting thing I read too, that what is the old expression? Prophets never accepted in his area.
Hometown,
I mean,
right?
there was fighting, literal fighting involved back in the early days of the Salvation Army, because, some preachers, well-known preachers, saw him as a threat to his. Even the whiskey and beer salespeople didn't like him, because they thought, he's going to make all these people not want to drink anymore.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they saw him as a threat on lots of different areas, and there were fights, and I think 3 Salvation Army workers were even killed. It was. It was a dangerous.
He shook things up.
Yeah.
Is what he did. And he shook things up all over the world. We're in 130 countries now. But when he stepped away, the reason he stepped away is because nobody wanted to help the people on the street. And
Right.
if you think about London in 1860, there was no plumbing, there was no sanitary, there was no medication. I mean, people were just laying around on the streets, and you couldn't walk by without seeing somebody, in need. And so he and his wife were like, we want to help these people. They went to the church, and they're like, we're good. We don't want to help them. And he said, okay, well, I'll just do my own thing then. And I can't exactly remember the specific quote, but one of the quotes from his wife was, if we were more worried about the humans that were laying in the streets of our city than we were about our cats and dogs, this world would be a much better place. So she was very firmly connected to this vision that he had. And they were very much partners in that.
I mean, applicable words for today.
Yeah, right?
Really, when you think about it. Yeah, it's considered one of the largest humanitarian aid organizations in the world, the distributor of this kind of help. One of his quotes that I found was, the chief danger that confronts the coming century, which would have been, I guess, turn of the 1900s, will be religion without the Holy Ghost, Christianity without Christ, forgiveness without repentance, salvation without regeneration, politics without God, and heaven without hell. I mean, pretty profound. And he also wrote hymns.
Yeah, he was ahead of his time for sure. He was even on the cover of Vanity Fair. I mean, he was a character, just a big personality.
Later on, he became a rock star. I mean, early on,
he was not so much.
It was touch and go. But yeah, William Booth and his wife Catherine, and of course in Waco, the William Booth Garden Apartments.
Yep, exactly.
Are here. I mean, his name lives on.
Yeah.
They had 8 children, and they were active as well in the Army, in the ranks.
They came to Texas 132 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We've been in Waco for 132 years.
Really?
Yes. His daughter, Evangeline, actually was the first national commander of the United States. So when we talk about women in leadership, and we had all these struggles about the vote and suffragettes and all of that.
Oh, and women preachers. I mean,
yeah,
still,
exactly.
yeah.
They were doing that in 1865. Yeah. Women were leaders in the
They
Salvation
really
Army.
really were ahead of their time.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, the kind of things, and there's so many things. You mentioned the thrift store, and I presume still that when people are cleaning out their closets, they want folks to bring
absolutely.
stuff.
So we love to have good donations at our thrift store because it is one of our financial arms to what we do. So it supports our homeless shelter, it supports our food pantry, it supports our community kitchen. So any great donations, if you don't need those things or you're clearing out a house to move, just call us. We will come and get your stuff if it's boxed and bagged up, and we will sell
That's right.
it.
You have panel trucks, and we will come
and get it.
And sometimes that can be an issue when you're cleaning out a house.
Absolutely.
What to do with the stuff?
Yeah. So my mother, we were actually just doing that with a house, and she was like, I don't know what to do with all this stuff.
Couches and things like that, but they still have life in them, and there are people that could use them.
Absolutely. So we encourage that recycling. I mean, even the things that people send to us that aren't in good condition, we still give them life beyond that, because we can pack up fabric and sell it to somebody who uses fabric in a way to, make rugs and things of that nature too. So we repurpose even what other people repurpose and then repurpose them again. So that's kind of
well, now let's talk about the physical presence of the Salvation Army in Waco specifically. I know there was a church there on I-35. Is that still?
It is still going.
That's
strong.
still there.
Yeah, still
and
there.
they have regular church meetings. It is a church
every Sunday. Yes, and it is a church. Absolutely. So Major Jim Taylor and Major April Taylor, they are married, and they manage the Salvation Army here in Waco, but they are also pastors. So they're not just handling all the work that we do, but they also minister to a congregation at a church. And so that's every Sunday. And, they're constantly at somebody's house or bringing dinner or
just serving.
Yeah, just serving people that they love.
And of course, over close to the silos, First Baptist Church as a facility, is that still? I understand you're building something. I guess it's what my long way around of figuring out what's going on.
So the community kitchen, the men's shelter, the women's shelter is all right there on Webster Street, kind of close to the silos.
Yeah.
And we had a vision. Major Jim Taylor had a vision a couple of years ago. Just, he felt like it was from God, and it was like, we need to make a move. We need to make a change. We need to do something different. We need bigger spaces. If you have seen our facilities, they are very small, and with the amount of homeless people that we feed every night, we are just jam-packed. And when it gets hot or cold and we open our spaces for for warming and cooling centers, it's so tiny. So those buildings were probably built in the 40s and the 50s, maybe the 60s.
Really? Is it that old?
They're really
realize
old.
It was
They're
that
really
old.
old.
Okay.
So, we're looking to move all of the facilities except for the thrift store to a location on LaSalle. And the city has already approved all of that, and we are preparing to make that happen.
So are you doing fundraising for construction costs, or how does that work?
Yeah,
or does the national organization help? Or
So the funny thing about the Salvation Army is everybody thinks, oh, it's this big national organization.
Right.
It's really not. We are very self-contained.
Uh-huh.
What we do in Waco is what we do in Waco. And
Okay.
what they do in Temple is what they do in Temple, and anywhere else. It's very different everywhere that you go. So, no, we're doing that, and it'll be a capital campaign, and we'll start that here pretty soon. But those details all haven't been released to us yet. And,
Right.
And we'll, here pretty soon. But
Right.
we're looking at maybe 4 years down the road, hopefully, to be able to have a ribbon cutting and open those doors.
so it is
It's a big complex.
it's going to be a
Yes,
long
yes.
process happening.
So,
okay.
it'll be housing. We're adding
really?
apartments.
Well, so the William Booth apartments that are over by MCC, will those still be there?
Well,
or?
so those are not actually owned by us
Okay.
any longer. And I'm not sure about that
Okay.
story, about why we divested of that property. But
Okay.
I think what it is that we really aren't in the business of being landlords. We
Right.
really
And it
want
was the subsidized
yeah.
apartments.
We
As I
want to-
recall, it was many years ago. I used to go there and sing to the residents and
so
stuff.
we really are into transition. So we want to take. We're having a conversation before the show. We want to take that person who is being rehabilitated, who was on drugs and now has gotten off and has gone through some of our programs. They're homeless. They're staying with us. They need their next step. So their next step is they have a job and they need somewhere to stay for a while until they're ready to get their own place.
Right.
So, we all are talking about the lack of, smaller and less expensive housing here in Waco.
Oh,
And
it's an issue.
it's a
yeah.
huge issue, and it'll just get more and more so if inflation keeps up the way it is.
Right.
But so we're building some transitional housing, and that'll be great. It'll be right there by the church. It'll be right there by the kitchen. I mean, everything will be all together, and we can really minister, not just spiritually, but with food and shelter. We can do all of those things that we really want to do now, but we just don't have the space to do that.
So then the church facility that's there on I-35, that property would be sold?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it would just be one other than the thrift
Other
store.
than the thrift
And
store.
where's the thrift store?
So we're on 4721 West Waco Drive.
On West Waco Drive.
So close to Barnes & Noble, I guess, would be the closest location to that you might know of. But we are actually the #1 thrift store in in the state of Texas.
Really?
Yeah, you wouldn't believe it, but
Look at that.
It is true. And in fact, this week we've had, oh my gosh, probably 15 teenagers every day this week in our thrift store volunteering. So that's one of our big volunteer jobs that we have available.
Well,
every
sorting and
single day.
folding, and
Oh my gosh.
there's always so much involved
Always
with
so
that.
much to do there, yeah. So they've been doing great, and like I said, it's a good fundraising arm for us.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, I want to talk some more about specifics about some of the lives that have been changed, because that's really what the Salvation Army is all about, that individual who needs help. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
What are we doing here, Rusty? What are we going to do?
Yep, we're doing the King of the Hill Rewatch podcast.
King of the Hill
Yes, sir.
Rewatch Podcast. Yeah, so we're going to go through one episode at a time. Come along for the ride with us.
Come check it out.
And give me a good, like Dale Gribble quote to go out on. Wingo!
Yeah, Wingo.
Wingo!
Wingo.
All right, well, join us for the King of the Hill Rewatch Podcast.
Deep in the heart of Texas, that drinks his brew and spits his chew. They've been the heart of Texas. The TV blares, but no one cares. They've been the heart of Texas. Here we go. Frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden
Yeah.
Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness
Yeah.
of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, this is Sarah,
And I'm Carter.
and this is Some of Our Thoughts.
We're two Southern sommeliers, and we want to share everything we love and know about wine. We started hanging out during quarantine and cooking and drinking and listening to music, and we just thought this would be a great way to bring everything we know to you guys.
We will make wine knowledge and food pairings easy and approachable. So put on your favorite vinyl, grab your favorite glass of wine, tune into our show, and let's have some fun.
Wine and
Dinah.
So check us out on roguemedianetwork.com or wherever you get your favorite podcast. We'll be talking about a lot.
And welcome back. I'm here with Dinah Mills, and we're just having a little catch up because it's been a while since we've had a chance to talk. And she was with the City of McGregor doing public relations, marketing, and now with the Salvation Army. And I have had in years past talked to April. I know I've talked to different ones with the Salvation Army, and been involved with some of the fundraising events that you've done. And so that's really what you're all about is helping the community understand the scope of the work of the Salvation Army and how they can help. Absolutely. And if you go to the website, I did go, and there's just an easy way you can just contribute whatever amount.
Yeah. The first thing that pops up is, please donate.
Yeah, please donate.
And I know everybody's like, oh, I got to donate and, skip that button. But please do. We would appreciate the help. And that actually does stay in this area. It is for our Waco Salvation Army, and it doesn't go anywhere else. So that money actually stays here in the community. But we have buttons to volunteer. We have lots of volunteer opportunities at our community kitchen. We feed 365 days out of the year.
Yeah.
And when it's freezing, like we had snowvid, those guys stayed every single day and fed those people that were all cooped up in our shelter, which is one of the reasons we want to move to a bigger location, because having 60 or 70 people in a building and trying to feed them and take care of them.
So I was wondering what your capacity was.
Yeah, so to shelter them for homeless is about 20 beds for them.
Okay, I didn't think it was a lot.
Yeah, it's not a lot because people are kind of transitioning through a lot. I mean, I remember one day I walked up to the building, and I had seen this gentleman there a couple of times, and he was like, he had his big bag, and he's like, I'm out of here. He said, I got a place, and I got a job, and I'm ready to go.
Oh,
I was just
good.
like, oh, it's so sweet. And so, kind of, makes you almost come to tears sometimes.
And glad you do what you do.
Yeah, exactly. I get stopped in the grocery store. I had my Salvation Army shirt on, and somebody said, thank you for your service. And I was just stopped for a second, and I thought, I really just help get volunteers, and I set up special events. I really don't do that much. But what they're thinking is the things that the Salvation Army does.
You're a member of the Army.
Yeah, we shelter, we feed. We basically are taking care of the body of people while they're downtrodden, and we also take care of their spiritual needs as well.
Well, we heard just before we started the story of a young man who was at rock bottom, lost his teeth, crack addict. I mean, and somehow ended up in a Salvation Army and is now running one of the facilities.
That is actually a pretty common story. I know of a gentleman who went through an adult rehabilitation program and is now signing up to be an officer. And that is no small task. It is a lifelong commitment. It is like they are giving their heart, their blood, their soul, their time, their family to the Salvation Army. It's about a 6-year training process.
Oh, really? Because I wondered about that. If you go to the church, are you, like a recruitment office? You're signing up?
There's levels of positions. And so he's going straight into officer training because he's been working for the Salvation Army for a long time. So, but there's lots of stories like that. And, then there's the stories of the people on the street. And one of the most recent stories that I heard about was a woman just in a really awful, abusive, terrible situation, and ended up at the Salvation Army, and she's turned her life around. She's got a job. She still kind of laments the fact that she doesn't make very much money. So there's still some additional programs that she could probably go through, some workforce training and things like that we could help her get to so she can get a little more on her feet. But that transitional housing is important for her right now because she doesn't have the money to afford rent. So, but she's getting there. She's almost there.
Well, and then that's great. And I was also reading some of the areas that the Salvation Army are addressing, areas that you wouldn't have thought, years ago, but human trafficking even.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's one of our newer programs, and it's something that we're basically training our employees to identify,
be able to spot.
And so that's a big thing. You hear these things on the radio and they're like, this lady was speeding. She ran through a red light and she did it on purpose because somebody was forcing her to drive her car somewhere. So just, what does a child look like when they're in distress or when they're with somebody? So,
or maybe the wrong person.
Exactly. So we have collaborations with other organizations within Waco, and we work together with those programs.
Yeah. Of course, Unbound, has been a great Susan Peters work in training groups and what to understand
absolutely
about that aspect. There are some, I'm sure there are just countless stories of lives who've been touched because of the Salvation Army and of people whose lives are enriched because they helped.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so you mentioned the volunteer aspect. What are some of the other ways they can volunteer besides the thrift store and serving up food?
Yeah, so they can serve food. They can serve at our thrift store. In fact, we have organizations that come once a month. We have people that just come twice a week, even just individuals. The other ways that they can volunteer is just through special programs that we do. Like we do a Thanksgiving dinner, we do a Christmas dinner, we ring the bells during the holidays.
I have rung the bells many times.
So we will be asking you to ring the bells again if you would like to.
I've got my spot in front of Dillard's. It's always fun.
That's perfect. Yes. So that's kind of our biggest push that we're going to be going closer to in July. I'm going to do a Christmas in July program where I will basically be going out and asking, who's ringing bells? Are you guys going to ring bells? Can you ring bells?
Oh, good.
With us?
To go ahead and get things
we want to get started.
Lined up.
Last year, I was brand new in my position, and so I was just running through the
because you don't want to be doing that in October.
No.
You
want to have that all set up.
Need to have that all set up.
Yep.
I loved standing there ringing that bell,
so much
wearing
fun.
the little apron,
Yep.
and a mom would hand her little one
$1.
money to put in the. And I thought, what a great thing to see them teaching children how to give.
Yeah, it's really something, and to have whole families that volunteer
Mm-hmm.
and don't just volunteer once; they'll volunteer several times.
Well, you
throughout
need
that
it
year.
because
we do.
yeah,
definitely need
that
it.
shift can
Yeah.
get long.
we have a gentleman who's, oh my gosh, I think he's probably racked up 900 hours of ringing the bell.
Really?
Yes. And so I don't even know how many years, maybe 6th year this coming up year. So we're looking forward to seeing him again. So
Yeah.
it's all good. We want to do a mayoral challenge. We want to do a chief, fire chief, police chief.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to do some fun stuff this year.
I can see Chief Victorian out there
Yes.
being very supportive of what you all are doing.
We are going to hope for that.
But I know you've done some major dinners, fundraising dinners and things. Do you have something like that on the horizon?
We don't for the fall this year because we did last year. We had a Broken to Beautiful, which was a program basically for women, just kind of talking about that, the Lord can turn ashes into beauty, and those struggles that you go through can actually be a place of growth for you.
Sure.
And so that was one of our programs last year, and we decided that it kind of butts up right against our Red Kettle fundraising. And
Right.
so
It gets a little.
it's a little hairy there. So we thought, you know what, let's push it into the spring of 2024, and we'll move on that way, because, when January hits, we're just like, we can breathe for like 2 weeks.
Right,
and
right.
Then it's just on again. But that'll give us some extra time to have a great program. For everybody.
And that can be the time when the weather's the worst too, and then
that's
you've
true.
got
Yeah.
you've got that to deal with. It's just got to be such a rewarding thing for you to do, to know you're helping out in this way.
Like I said, I get stories everywhere I go. I do speak to Rotary clubs and Lions clubs and school groups and students. I speak to students every day when they're at my thrift store, because our corporate office is actually butted up against the thrift store. So when the volunteers get there, I get to, give them a little explanation about what we do. But I always get stories back of, oh my gosh, the Salvation Army helped us so much when I was little. I don't think that my mom could have put food on the table if it wasn't for you guys. And
Really?
yeah, so I get those stories almost everywhere I go if I'm branded, and I try to be branded as often as I can be today. I do have my name tag on.
You have your name tag
I
on.
do have my name tag on.
Well, I'm so proud of you. Well, I like to end these little visits with a little questionnaire. It's similar to the one the late, great James Lipton would use on Inside the Actor's Studio.
Oh.
So it's my little take on it, and I will start with, what is your favorite word?
Absolutely.
Really?
That is my favorite word.
I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're the first one
Yeah.
to have absolutely.
Absolutely.
I use it a lot.
Yeah. If you want me to do something, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I will do it.
What is your least favorite word then?
Oh my God. I think maybe apathy. Apathy, because I work in an organization where apathy can kill us. Right? So if we have people who don't understand what our mission is, people who don't know what we do, people who still think we're just a thrift store, I don't really think that that's apathy, but we don't want that. We want to have excitement and energy and fun, because what we do, even though it's very serious, I mean, we're feeding people who are homeless that are out on the street. We do have a very good time with everything that we do. So I don't like that word apathy.
You find joy in everything.
Yeah, we do.
Then what turns you on creatively, spiritually, or emotionally?
So creatively, I really love to come up with new ideas of ways to do things. Even if that's a graphic program or a social program that we need to implement. I love doing new stuff, and I love to bring other people together to do things like that. So creatively, that's kind of my jam there. Spiritually, I just worship all the time. Worship music is just my lifeblood, and I just spend time in prayer and worship, and I can end up on my hands and knees in the bedroom crying my eyes out for no reason or for good reason, and then I just get this breath of okay, we're all good. God is good, and I can move on from there.
Then what turns you off creatively or spiritually or emotionally?
I don't like the word no.
No, yeah, I've heard that before.
I do not like the word no. I do not like to think, oh, I got this really great idea. No. Hey, what
Can't
about
be
if
done.
What about if we no? And I'm not talking about my current job. I'm talking about
or anything, yeah,
anywhere.
Yeah,
I don't want to
negativity.
do no. I want to pursue that. Can we do that?
Yeah.
Maybe we can do
Yeah,
that.
let's give it a thought. Yeah. What sound do you love the most? You mentioned praise music, but
Oh my gosh, the birds.
bird song.
Bird song. Yep. So I live in the country. I live in China Springs.
Yeah.
So completely surrounded by songbirds all of the time. And
Yeah. You feed them? You have feeders out?
I don't actually.
Really? Well, you may not need that.
I don't.
Of course,
I don't.
This has been such a great year for wildflowers
yes.
that I think the birds have had a lot
They're
of food
eating my
out there.
trees. Yeah, they're having plenty, and I have a horse, so there's there's food, there's hay, there's
Yeah.
lots of stuff out there for them. So yeah, the sound of birds is lovely.
Okay, what sound do you hate?
Gosh, that is a really tough. What sound do you hate?
Oh, I've heard.
You've heard
I'll
so many
report.
answers.
I'll report what the answer. And of course, I guess for me, fingernails on a blackboard.
Oh yeah.
I can't even say it out loud.
Oh, okay. I got
I
it.
just think about it. It's like,
Okay. So
But,
this,
yeah.
there's actually a name for this, and I don't know what it is. And my cousin says she has this too, but it's the sound of somebody chewing, like right behind me.
or if it's something
next-
crunchy or ice
like an
or
apple, yeah.
or even I had a hairdresser once that had a sign that said "Do not chew gum."
While you're in her chair,
She couldn't
No.
stand the sound of somebody
I love
chewing
my
gum. I
mom.
guess popping it or
Yeah,
whatever.
I love my mom, but don't come up behind me eating an apple. I'll be like,
Oh gosh,
yeah. So it is.
That's
that peeve.
funny. Okay, well, you've always kind of been in PR, marketing, that kind of. What other profession would you like to have tried, or may still want to try? I don't know.
Oh, I have and it kind of goes along a little bit about what I'm doing now in that urban planning is fascinating to me. If I had it all to do over again, starting from here, and I had, 30 years out, I would probably want to go into urban planning, just
Really?
working for the city of McGregor and, seeing what TxDOT is doing with our highway systems and our roads.
Yeah,
and,
how it
like-
can affect businesses.
Yeah,
and,
so like how they
yeah.
closed off Salado.
oh,
so it's
Salado
so
just
hard.
took it on the chin.
Oh my gosh, just
That was horrible.
kills me. So
Yeah.
I would love to see kind of more greening up of spaces. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Europe has done it and has done it right, and the United States has really just put us into this is my thought only, into just a travel situation. We were moving
Yeah.
people from one location to another, but bypassing all the small places that we used to stop at and visit and enjoy. And so now it's just a big highway system all the way through. Now, granted, we all want I-35 to, work and work good for us.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, we don't want to take away from our small cities.
What has it
too.
done? Yeah.
Yeah, what has it done to our community? I mean, there's small communities all over that are really focusing on making those streets walkable. And I think that's one of the things that Waco is working on right now. They want
Yes.
to make it a walkable city, and that's going to require some changes in the future. And I was talking to a group of, oh my gosh, about 30 fraternity boys who came by, young men, who came and helped us paint our shelter.
Oh, good.
Right, great volunteer project. They did a good job. And I was like, okay, what are you guys studying? Is anybody studying government or city leadership or
yeah.
management, urban planning? Crickets, nothing. Doctors, lawyers, all of these other jobs where they could make money. And I'm just thinking,
Professional
man, we
things.
really need to focus on our youth and have them understand that we have governmental positions that need to be filled. City managers, assistant city managers, city secretaries.
Yeah.
All of those jobs are so important.
Yeah, and they don't
Yeah.
pay hay. I mean,
They
they're
don't-
they're
no.
not
These are good,
bad.
good
Yeah, they're not
professions,
bad
and-
positions.
and they do great things for their communities.
Yeah. Well, what job do you know you would not want to do?
Oh, I just could never be a nurse. I just couldn't
Yeah.
do it. I'm so tenderhearted, first of all, that I would just blubber my whole way through
Yeah.
any kind of sorrow or problem,
Right.
for sure.
Yeah, getting attached to patients would be really.
I just couldn't do it. And then, the whole shot thing, just, one time my cat, it's a quick story, my cat got a cactus, whatever.
Spine, whatever, yeah,
stuck
yeah.
in its cheek. And I was very young. And I was like, I don't know. And I'm pulling, and his cheek is pulling.
And the cat's cheek is coming. The cat's like,
And so,
what
I
are you
had
doing?
To, yank it out. And I did want to be a veterinarian.
Uh-huh.
But I think the whole blood thing after a while was like, I just,
no.
not going to do
Not
that.
going there.
Yeah,
Well,
nursing, not at all.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard more often they say, could never be a doctor.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I
But
couldn't do it.
anyway, but yeah. But we're glad we have them. We're
Oh, my
and
gosh.
compassionate, caring nurses.
So thankful
So,
for them.
so important, yeah, for sure. Well, finally, what do you want to hear God say to you when you arrive at the pearly gates?
Oh my gosh. I want him to say, it's going to make me cry, that I was with you the whole time and I never left your side. That's what I want to hear him say.
Yeah, because you know it.
Yes, I feel it. He's there.
Yeah.
He's there.
Yeah.
And I love him. I worship him. And, now I'm luckily and just so blessed to be working for an organization that ministers to people's spirits and their souls, and that we
And
can
their
talk-
bodies.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and their physical
and that
needs.
We can bring them to Christ.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that
that's the
brings
bottom
them
line.
Along their steps.
Yeah, it's an eternal work. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dinah, it is a delight. Thank you so much for being with it. The time just flies by, but let's not wait so long before we visit again.
I know.
All right, Dinah Mills, thank you so much with the Salvation Army, and thank you for joining us today. Please join us again for another edition of Central Texas Life. Bye-bye.
Central Texas Life with Ann Harder is part of the Rogue Media family. Be sure to check out our other shows at roguemedianetwork.com. Please rate this show 5 stars on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Join us again soon for more Central Texas Life with Ann Harder.